A few months ago, this story barely made sense. To me, it seemed like a mess, a jumble of thoughts that I could not seem to contain into any sort of logic. Now I am finishing the second draft and I am actually feeling confident in my work. Hi there, fellow creative. Welcome back. My name is McKenna, if you're not familiar, and thank you so much for joining me this evening for a nice, quiet little writing session. I am almost done the second draft of my short story, and it's really coming along, and I'm really starting to become proud of it, which is something that I'm not used to feeling about my own work. I think that mainly comes from a lot of like the self-reflective work I've been doing these past few years, but especially like with the Artist Way, working through a lot of like my creative blocks, if you will. I think that's been one of the main reasons that I've started to actually feel proud of my work. So at this point in the writing process, I've come to a place where I feel like a lot of the plot's been, I figured out a lot of the things that weren't working, and I've found ways to make them work. The main things that I've changed about this story, I've already covered in another video, but I'll just reiterate again in case you haven't watched it. I dropped a lot of the characters, so I went from like so many characters, probably a dozen characters to 5 characters. I explained more about that in the other video, but the other one was also giving the characters, like spacing out their introductions. So I found since spacing out the introductions, it gives space for the characters to have more dialogue and more conversations between each other, and it opens up a little more space to explain more about who the characters are, I guess. At this point in the story, I'm almost at 4,000 words. I wasn't really going for a specific word count. I was just kind of writing a short story. I knew it wasn't going to be very long, but it did turn out to be a little longer than I originally anticipated. I noted some problems in the comment section, which I feel is very handy if you're using pretty much every writing program, or like anything like Google Docs or Notion, or whatever you're using probably has like a comment section. So using that as you're writing to just like note down anything that isn't working. So one of the main characters in my story is this little girl who is deaf, and she doesn't talk at all in the entire story. But I wrote her name in the story, and I was like, how do they know her name if she doesn't talk? So I wrote a comment about I need to fix that. And another part of the story that I wasn't sure of at the beginning was the ending. I knew what I wanted to happen generally, but I didn't know how I wanted to write it, and all of the details basically. So that I've kind of fixed that, and I'm pretty much ready for the second round of feedback. But yeah, it's going good so far, and I'm just gonna spend a little bit of this evening writing and listening to music. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. I have really enjoyed spending time with you, and I will see you in the next one.